Jolt, Amazon Prime's brand new movie starring Kate Beckinsale about a bouncer with a slightly murderous anger management problem that she controls with the help of an electro-lined vest she uses to shock herself back to normalcy whenever she gets homicidal. After the first guy she's ever fallen for is murdered, she goes on a revenge-fueled rampage to find the killer while the cops pursue her as the chief suspect. Now, Amazon Prime's last big movie was The Tomorrow War, which is one of the stupidest movies I've ever seen. So it didn't have a lot to live up to, Jolt. And my expectations weren't too high for this one. But for the most part, for an action movie, this might be the tamest action movie I've ever seen. While it has chase scenes and fight scenes and explosions, it's all kind of meh. Like there's a scene with a McLaren Spider, I think it is, and Kate Beckinsale drives that around, cool. But overall the chase is fairly tame and she gets away. The car looks cool though, weird choice of colour with like a snot green. But I gotta say, my expectations were very, very low into this movie, and about, I'd say 60% of the way through I was like, oh, I'm actually enjoying this movie. It's going along pretty well. And then the movie kept going, and my rating for it went down a little bit more. And then the movie kept going, and it went down a little bit more. And as the ending came along and the more predictable things came along, by which I mean stuff I was predicting at the start would happens, it's all fairly generic. As that stuff happens and then more and more bad fight scenes come along, my rating starts going down and down and down for this movie. So with Jolt, as I've already mentioned, I wasn't expecting too much, and then as I'm watching it, it was a bit of fun. The scene where Kate Beckinsale throws a baby to get away from a cop, I laughed my ass off at that. Whether it was supposed to be funny, I don't know, but I laughed my ass off at the ridiculousness of it. Apart from some small things like that, the core story is very generic. Do you know what movie it kept reminding me of a little bit, or the same character kept reminding me of, a watered down version of, is John Wick. You know, in the first one, I think his dog is killed, so he goes on a rampage to find the people that did it and kills them all. That's kind of the same thing with Jolt. Instead of a dog, she's got not quite a boyfriend. I'm not quite sure why that had to be a big thing in the movie. They're like, oh, we've had a couple of dates, he's my boyfriend. No, he's not my boyfriend. And that's kind of what they kept doing throughout the movie. I don't know why it had to be there. It wasn't really that funny, but I guess the writer liked it. What I will say about the movie is the casting choice was pretty solid. If you're going for a femme fatale, a woman who can portray a badass, Kate Beckinsale is definitely a way to go. She's done it many times in the past, especially with the likes of the Underworld series. Some of the original ones are pretty damn good. And even in the terrible version of Total Recall from like 2014, which I think I covered in Worst Movie Ever, she was like the best part of that movie, where again, she's playing a badass. So Kate Beckinsale has badass credentials. She can play that role, and it was a good choice. Stanley Tucci's in there too. The cast is pretty damn decent. Once again from Amazon, it's a poorly written movie, very generic, and as the movie wears on, the movie just gets worse and worse and worse. I don't know if the filmmakers just got bored making it and tried a little bit less, but ultimately it culminates in a final reveal scene, I guess. Not a final scene, but it's the scene where they reveal, spoiler alert, if you haven't seen the movie, there's a major spoiler here, but her boyfriend, not boyfriend, who was killed off screen, he is the bad guy all along. He never died. Dun, dun, dun. But that's the thing, there's an unwritten rule in movies, if you didn't know. I'm sure many of you do know, but for those of you that don't know, there's an unwritten rule in movies. If you do not see the character die, by which I mean a bullet in the head, no chance of recovery, that character is not dead. Because, for example, if you see his feet move and you just assume he's dead, or you see a shadow fall, more than likely that person's going to come back at some point. And especially if a character is killed off screen and you don't even hear any sound, you're just told next scene that person was killed. More than likely, 9 times out of 10, 9.999997 times out of 10, that person is going to be revealed as the bad guy at the end of the movie. Or he's going to come back as a henchman later in the movie. And that's very much what happened here with Jolt. The guy was killed off screen, and shock horror, he's the bad guy. Oh my God. And Kate Beckinsale is heartbroken at the end of the movie for some reason, even though, as she's admitted throughout the movie, they weren't even a couple, they just had a couple of dates that went well. But yeah, It's kind of weird. But the part that was really ridiculous was the explosion. Because Kate Beckinsale like throws a bomb she had ready to him. He opens the bag, the bomb goes off, and it's possibly the worst CGI I've seen since the 90s Mortal Kombat movies. Amateurs who only started using Adobe After Effects can do better like after 1 week of using Adobe After Effects. It was one of the worst explosions I've seen in any Hollywood movie. And on top of that, it was so bad, but then the entire building like blows up from this one little bag. Like, how many explosives did she have in that one little bag? It was so ridiculous. And then the movie goes on. They've clearly set up for a sequel. They think there's going to be a Jolt 2. Who the hell wants to see a Jolt 2? I don't know. But they obviously think there's money in it, which is crazy because apparently they're making Tomorrow War 2 as well. What is going on with Amazon? They're just like, let's make shit movies, make sure we're making a sequel, and people will just watch them anyway. People probably will still watch the shit anyway. But they've clearly set up for Jolt 2, and then the credits roll, and there's a post-credit sequence which just didn't really add anything to the movie at all, because, you know, there was like a girl who was like a hacker, and she's like a teenager or something in a shop, and Kate Beckinsale gave her the keys to the car, and then the post-credit sequence is just a girl going out and finding the car. I guess it was supposed to be funny, but yeah, it was a movie. It was a movie. I think that's my rating for Jolt. It was a movie. But in all seriousness, it had some good points. It did, for the most part, for the first, I'd say 60 minutes, had a good snappy pace to it. It wasn't too slow, although I did find myself picking up my phone on a couple of occasions and staring at it for like 10 minutes. There's a terrible fight scene at the end where Kate Beckinsale is fighting a load of guys, and it's just terribly shot, it's terribly choreographed. You could see the guys getting ready to jump before they're hit and things like that, and the guys are like lining up waiting for Kate Beckinsale to get to the next guy, and then that explosion at the end, and you know, the whole throwing the baby thing was funny but kind of ridiculous at the same time. So the movie wasn't the worst movie I've ever seen, and it wasn't the stupidest movie Amazon have even made, because that was the Tomorrow War, but it was by no means a good movie, and therefore my rating for Jolt, I think, will be a very generous 3 out of 10. I don't think I could ever give it any higher. But maybe there's people out there who loved every second of it. Maybe I just took it a little bit too seriously, even though I was just laughing my ass off at most of the things in the movie. But I'd love to know your opinions on a new Amazon Prime movie starring Kate Beckinsale called Jolt. Let me know your thoughts in the comment section below. And if you enjoyed this little movie review, I'd really appreciate it if you do me one little favor, and that's if you haven't done it already, jump below this video, hit that subscribe button for new content every single week. And with all that said and done, thank you so much for watching.